Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. We are getting so close to Christmas. This time next week, it's Christmas morning, which makes, I'm pretty much certain, all of you excited. At least I'm pretty excited about Christmas morning. So I hope you are too, but that's a week away. We still have a few things to get in these last few days. Well, boys and girls, we have been talking about Jesus coming. We talked about God doing things that are impossible. Boys and girls, did you see God answer prayer this week? Did you take the challenge? Did you pray and ask God to help you with the impossible? I hope you did. Boys and girls, it's incredible to see how God works in our lives. Sometimes it's the big things, sometimes it's the small things, but it is incredible to see God work out the different details. And I will spare you from personal stories at the moment because, Peter's going to point me back to the Bible because that's where we need to stick, because I could go on, boys and girls, with story after story of how God has filled in what to me is the impossible, and yet he works it out. It's pretty incredible, boys and girls, and I hope you can see that in your own life as well. But going back to Mary and Joseph, and we talked last week how an angel had come to visit them. The angel visited each one of them. He gave them the news that Jesus was going to be born. Well, boys and girls, if you've studied in the Old Testament, you know that Jesus is supposed to be born in the city of Bethlehem. Okay, no problem, right? We've probably sung the song, "Oh, Little Town of Bethlehem." I told the junior church kids a couple weeks ago, that's one of my favorite Christmas songs. I have two that are my most favorite. You know, you're supposed to have one. And anyways, "Oh, Little Town of Bethlehem's a favorite. Two, the first Noel's the other one. Sometimes that appears as a bonus question for my school kids, so they better be watching. Anyways, so Jesus is supposed to be born in Bethlehem, but boys and girls, they're not living in Bethlehem right now. Like, they're in Nazareth. They're 90 miles away from Bethlehem. So Mary's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. And 90 miles in a car, that might take you about an hour and a half. Depends who's driving. Might take you an hour and a half. But do they have cars back then, boys and girls? Did the Bible have cars? No, didn't have cars. Oh, Peter's going to help us out here. Yeah, a donkey. They may or may not have ridden a donkey in my research I was doing. But even if they were, they probably weren't riding a sheep, though. That'd be a little rough. Even if Mary was riding a donkey, boys and girls, that would have been a really rough trip. Other than that, they had to walk. Can you imagine walking 90 miles? It probably took them 8 to 10 days to travel. Can you imagine walking for 8 to 10 days? I wouldn't want to walk for 8 to 10 days, boys and girls. No way would I want to do that, but they did. So why? Why would a pregnant lady travel 8 to 10 days to go to Bethlehem? Did she read the Old Testament and say, "Oh, we better get there, Joseph"? No. God actually uses an unsaved person to get them where they're supposed to be. He uses Caesar Augustus to make a decree that they had to do a census. They had to count the people, and they had to count them in the city that they were born in. So Joseph, being born in Bethlehem, had to go back to Bethlehem so that he could be counted. Well, Nazareth is in the northern part of Israel, pretty near the Sea of Galilee. And there is still a city of Nazareth today. Joseph was a carpenter, and Mary was with Mary, his betrothed wife, and they're getting ready to have Jesus. Well, God had promised that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. Do you know what a prophecy is, boys and girls? A prophecy, I'm pretty sure we've used it before, thrown it out, but it's that idea that in the Old Testament, God said what was going to take place in the New Testament. Now, not every detail, but there were some things that were promised and some things that were going to happen. So we're going to read one of those prophecies. In Micah chapter 5, verse 2, it says, "But thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting." Boys and girls, this was a long time before Jesus was born, and yet it was promised that Bethlehem Ephratah, a small city among Judah, would be the special place where Jesus would be born. Bethlehem is in the southern part of Israel near Jerusalem. It is also still a city today. And you've probably heard of the song, O Little Town of Bethlehem, as we said. Bethlehem was also the birthplace of King David. That is where King David was born. So Caesar Augustus makes the decree. Caesar Augustus actually lives in Rome. He's not even anywhere near. But he says, I want the people to be counted. They need to go back and they take a census. They count the people. Well, Mary and Joseph, count on your fingers. That's right there, Peter. Mary and Joseph, they travel. They're on their way to Bethlehem. Mary was also a descendant of King David. You can see her lineage in Luke chapter 3. But we're going to look at Luke chapter 2 briefly and then wrap it up here, boys and girls. Luke chapter 2 verse 1 says, It came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph, verse 4, also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth unto Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. Both Joseph and Mary were descendants of David. Verse 5, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. She was about to have that baby. Well, boys and girls, they took that long trip and they made it to where they were supposed to go. And when they got there, boys and girls, do you know where they stayed? I mean, they knocked on the first inn door. They knocked. Is there any room in the inn? Oh, no. Okay, no room. All right. They knock on any room? No. The city was so full of people, boys and girls. There was no room in any of the inns. So think of that like a hotel or a motel. There was no room. And finally, Joseph's getting desperate. He's like, Mary's so pregnant. She's ready to have this baby. And do you know what they offered him? A stable. A stable's like a barn. They offered for Mary and Joseph to stay in a stable, but you know what, boys and girls? Mary and Joseph were so grateful to have somewhere safe, somewhere in and out of the weather, somewhere where they would be protected, that they went to that stable. So think of a barn, basically, boys and girls, and that is where Mary and Joseph are going to stay. And next Sunday's Christmas morning, where we get to go to the next part of this story, and I know most of you know it. But boys and girls, God makes promises and he always keeps them. What God says will happen, will happen. He prophesied it in Micah. It comes true in Luke chapter 2 and other places as well. Boys and girls, God always keeps his promises. If you're still facing that impossible task we talked about last week, keep praying, boys and girls. God wants to hear you. If you're saved, you're one of his children. He wants to hear from you. Take that impossible task to him. And remember, he always keeps his promises. He used a ruler from another country to make it so that they went to Bethlehem. Boys and girls, God can use anyone to fulfill his plan. I hope you'll follow him. See you next Sunday.